Hey there. We'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you're helping us spread the word and connect with more amazing people like you.
Welcome to We Be Parents, where parent doctors Matthew Lederman and Alona Pulde explore current parenting topics, share stories, and help bring families closer together.
Welcome to We Be Parents, where we explore the joys and challenges of parenting and help families grow closer together. Hi, I'm Dr. Alona Pulde.
And I'm Dr. Matthew Lederman.
And today we're diving into a topic that's so relevant for us and for many other really busy parents. In fact, who isn't a busy parent? It almost goes hand in hand. How to intentionally connect with each other in the middle of life's chaos instead of waiting for the perfect moment that never seems to come.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. This is a very relevant and resonant topic for me, especially lately when we've been dealing with some health issues with our oldest daughter. And it seems like, as happy as I am to support her, and not that I want her to have the health challenges, but, that we're committed to supporting her, whatever that takes. I do notice how that has come at the cost of some of our connection. And, I think I keep having that thought of, I'll just get through this. I'll just get through this, whether it's this to-do list or these items that I have to do or this issue that we're dealing with. And then we'll find the time to connect. But it seems like that moment just doesn't come because there's always something added, something more, something to do.
Yeah, and I know you said you're doing all right. If I was going to check in with myself, everything that you just described just now is probably the biggest challenge for me. It's my need for connection. And to me, needs are these almost like these streams that can be flowing well, or they can be a little boulder or blockage in the stream and it's not flowing as well. That's the way I think of needs. And my need for connection right now, the stream is flowing a little lighter, there's a little turbulence in there. And it's been a challenge because of all this other stuff life has presented us with. And I have to be even more intentional to meet the need for connection, because as parents, I think that we often sacrifice, particularly between the couple, between me and you, and we put ourselves last, and then we don't meet our needs for connection because we think, well, let's get everything else handled and then we'll do this at the end when there's time left over that ultimately never shows up.
Yeah, and I think there's a great cost to that over lengths of time, where you don't tend to a relationship. And then there's a natural distance that happens that becomes harder, or sometimes it feels like insurmountable to bridge when you've let so much time go by without tending to connection. And that's an intimate relationship. It's a friendship. It's any kind of important relationship in your life.
Yeah, it starts to become harder to have those little moments of warmth and joy and connection because there's this subtle distance and loneliness that can build up.
Yeah. And part of that connection comes from familiarity. And part of that familiarity comes from regular connections, right? So that I'm involved in your life. I know what's happening in your life. I feel a part of your life. And I'm using you as an example, but it can be anybody. And if I don't feel that way, or you don't feel that way, and there's this natural kind of, like we said, like a distance that becomes, you feel like a stranger all of a sudden. And
that's a weird stranger thing. It's like I know this person really well, but there's a felt sense that you would have more on the stranger, with a stranger type of. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like intellectually, I've known you for how many years now? Do the math, 20 something years. And it's not that I lose that familiarity, but there's a felt sense of that hugging, warmth, connection, joking, laughing, smiling, moments of making eye contact, that as those become fewer and far between because you're busy putting out fires and getting things done and work and trying to do a little bit of self-care, and the less frequent you have those moments of connection, the more this felt sense of distance or loneliness starts to creep in, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. That completely resonates. And that is exactly the topic that we're going to be talking about today, because let's get real. Parenting is chaotic. There are always demands. There's homework, there's errands, there's tantrums, there's dinner, there's friend issues, health issues.
You throw illness on top of all that stuff, or problems, or with our girls, the drama that comes up in school could take an entire, we could devote evenings to.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our kids is in middle school, and one is very close to entering middle school, and it's incredible how the drama becomes exponential once you step into that environment. And in all of that, we often put off connecting with our partner, even sometimes with our kids. We think, oh, I'll check in later when things settle down, or when things are calmer or quieter, or when this issue has passed. I have time. But the issue is that later never comes. That time is never suddenly appears for you.
Yeah, I like playing handball with Jordan outside. Jordan's our 11-year-old, and she loves playing handball. And she said to me after we play handball, even if it's just 15 minutes, say, Dad, one of my favorite parts of the day was playing handball with you. So it's really sweet. But the other day, there was just, we were food shopping and doing stuff around the house. And then all of a sudden there was this work stuff, and there was a bunch of health issues and doctor's appointments. And then I was at my computer, and I had like maybe 30, 45 minutes before I had to go to another meeting. And I was doing something that I probably could have done the next day, but there was this need to get this done so I can get it off my plate. And I came out, and I was about to go to my meeting because I spent the 45 minutes, and Jordan was like, oh, can you play handball with me, Dad? And I said, oh, I can't. I was working for these 45 minutes, and I'm going to my meeting, and I can't play handball. But I felt really sad because I was just putting out fires, and I missed that opportunity for 15 minutes of connection with her playing handball. And in hindsight, if I was more aware and more intentional, and I said, okay, how am I going to get these connection moments in? And then I can fill the rest of the time up with other stuff. That would have been ideal. But because I wasn't intentional, I didn't get that connection moment that I really mourned not having.
Yeah. And it's a mourning even when it's a one-off, but when it starts becoming a chronic issue, to me, it's like chronic disease. You don't wake up one day and have diabetes. You've contributed to that through lifestyle and diet over years and years and years. And the same thing with disconnection. It doesn't just appear that people feel disconnected from one another or strangers to one another. This is something that has been present and insidious for a tremendous amount of time.
Yeah. And knowing that that happens, and it's time over and over again of this building up, this disconnection sort of building up, is helpful, because then it's not going to fix overnight. One connected moment isn't going to balance everything back. And I think people start to question the relationship even. Hey, is everything okay? I think even our kids notice when we're connecting less. Our kids will, ask us, "Is everything okay?" They really pick up on the tension, the stress, the amount of interaction that we have. It's can be concerning for them. So it not only affects us, but it affects their sense of well-being when we're not connecting as much.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they'll notice, and the funny thing is that you and I spend so much time together over the course of the day that I want to clear what connection means, because we connect on a lot of things, but those things are more transactional. They're in the headspace, things that need to get done, things we need to finish, the things we need to cross off the to-do list, things we need to divide and conquer. But we're not in the heart space of really connecting in our hearts together.
And that's why there doesn't feel like there's intimacy. So you can be together and be very disconnected.
Yes.
So I think there's people that will be listening that will say, hey, I don't even see my partner. So if I could just do the dishes next to my partner, that's a step in the right direction. And it is. At least there's some togetherness. And I differentiate between togetherness and connection.
Yes.
And to me, connection is more about that intimate, felt space, not just the intellectual, more transactional space.
Right.
Both are valuable, but having these moments of felt connection is essential for the relationship to thrive.
Right. Not sacrificing that for the transactional that needs to get done.
Or mistake it and say, oh, we spend a lot of time together, so we're connecting.
Yes. It reminds me, actually, this is kind of what came to mind as a visual. The other day we took Jordan to California Adventure, and we spent the whole day together, you, me, and Jordan, walking alongside each other and everything. But there's a difference between we're walking alongside each other, everybody's looking in a different direction, and when you were holding my hand. And all of a sudden it was like, it's a different type of connection, even though the whole day was spent together.
Yeah, I remember that. I was particularly struggling with worry and a sense of insecurity around Kylie, who's our 13-year-old, her health and with her Crohn's disease. And I remember feeling more shut down and distant while we were at California Adventure. And I had a hard time when I'm in that state, even approaching you with more warmth and touch. And I can't remember what it was actually, but I remember the switch too. Like the day that I was feeling more distant and lonely, even though we were together. And then sort of like the second half, something switched. And I do remember holding your hand and there was touch and connection. And do you remember what the switch was? But I do remember there was almost like a flip.
Maybe you had lunch. Okay.
Maybe
you were more recent.
I was just hungry.
I don't know.
But you see what I'm saying? Like there was something, but it was so clear. I have the same exact memory of a difference there. And I think when people understand that difference, sometimes I'll work with clients and they'll say like, I just want them to be, to love me and to, there's this abstract, and the husband is confused because he's I don't know, what do you mean by I want you to love me? And at the same time, the other partner is like, oh, I just want that intimacy. So again, they can't put words into that felt vulnerable place where our hearts are both open and with each other. I don't know how to, it still sounds abstract when I talk about it, but it's very important, I think, for people to understand that felt space together, that heart space together versus just being physically next to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And I think one of the big obstacles, or, one of the obstacles can be time. There's so little time already. Carving out more time for this connection, because it feels like, well, if I'm not spending a lot of time on this, then is it even worth it? And I think that's the value of kind of the discussion today, is that it doesn't have to be these big, elaborate gestures or a tremendous amount of time. By stepping out of the chaos, even briefly, and making small, intentional connections, we'll call them MicroConnections, you can strengthen that family bond even in the busiest and most hectic moments. And it could be the 15 minutes of hand-holding over the course of the entire day. And that was really touching. Or, another thing that I noticed I just love is I'll do a heart-to-heart with the girls where they'll sit on my lap facing me and hug me in a way that our hearts touch. And we can do that for 3, 4, 5 minutes. And my heart just fills up, feeling their heartbeat, feeling their warmth, feeling that touch and that proximity to one another, and sharing that time and space is just so, it's resourcing, it's refreshing, it fills up my cup, and it's 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's the key, is knowing what are some actions, what are strategies that will actually meet that need for that felt space, that felt heart space of connection. I have one that I really like, which is a 30-second hug. And I'll say to the kids, can you give me a hug for 30 seconds? And we try to match our breathing to each other. And that feels really warm and sweet. So it doesn't have to be this 20, 30 minutes. That's 30 to 60 seconds.
Yeah. Who doesn't have 30 or 60 seconds, and the value that comes out of that 30 or 60 seconds is priceless.
Yeah, I love when you will sit right across my lap and look at me very close, and we're making eye contact, and sometimes you'll touch my face. And I love that. And it's only a couple of minutes, but everything around me stops. When I'm doing when I'm in that heart space, the head stops. If you're still thinking about what you have to do while you're doing something, you're not really in the heart space, has been my experience. What would you say about that?
Yeah, when you can step into feeling, when you're present.
Yes.
When your mind is not busy, contemplating the past or worrying about the future, but you can just be in the moment.
Yeah, and I have a hard time doing that if I don't physically step out. So if the chaos is there, stepping out of the chaos for me is essential. So we're not telling people you can't have chaos in your lives. That's not likely for parents. But can you step out? And for me, it's important to physically shift environments. It's almost like with kids when they're screaming and having a tantrum. Remember when they were young and we would hold them and nothing we did would get them, but then you'd walk outside and there's something about the change in the temperature and the smell and the cold, but the whole body regulates just from going outside and walking with them. And then you come back in, it's like a new kid.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's the same thing where you just physically shift your body and there's some message to the whole body that says, okay, we're shifting gears here. So that's why I personally love going to we call it the feeling couch instead of the thinking chair. And I'll go to the feeling couch and I sit there and I just say, okay, now I'm going to sink in to what I'm feeling. And it's with you and me, I'll just share, I'll start with body sensations. Oh, I'm feeling a little bit of heartburn in my chest, and I'm feeling a little bloating in my stomach, and I'm feeling a little squeezing in my head. So I'm just starting to name physical sensations with you. And for you to hear that, even though I'm like, how's this helping Alona? But you said that it seems to be helpful to start with physical sensations, and then I can get to emotions, and then I can get to needs. And, I could even start by sharing images. I have this image of like a tornado spinning around my office with me caught in it. And there's something, you can even speak to that now. Like, what is it, would you say, that just sharing body sensations and images, even if I don't get to the emotions, seems to be contributing?
I think there are two things. One is there's a vulnerable openness and a sharing of your experience. And you're inviting me into that world. And that's, to me, the exact opposite of shutdown. Where shutdown feels so distant, you're shutting someone out of your life. You have closed the door and you're on either side of the door. Now I feel like I'm through the door with you and we're in this together. I don't have to solve it for you, but I can understand your space, your world. And even that invitation and the vulnerability, I think, feels great.
And it's easier to do that when I'm not worried that you're going to try and fix it, or you're going to pressure me to say, well, what are you feeling? Or what does that mean? What do you mean a tornado? Or what do you mean you feel stressed? Why do you have stomach? Was it something you ate? So there's none of that. It's just sharing what's there, and you're just allowing it to unfold and being there with me. And then I have to trust that that's actually going to contribute to you, because I'm like, well, I don't know exactly what I'm feeling right now.
And ladies and gentlemen, that has been a work in progress. Alona did not start off that way. Those examples that he gave were real.
Tell us more about the work in progress.
Yeah, that whole notion of kind of stepping into someone else's world doesn't mean fixing it for them. It means sitting in there with them, unless they're asking for solutions, right? But sometimes it's just about sharing that space, letting them know they're not alone, but they're welcome to whatever comes up for them. And that is hard for me. I don't like hearing that my loved ones are in pain in any way, whether it's emotional or physical pain. And it's a very uncomfortable space for me. So it's been a real effort. I've been working on making space for that too, being okay in the discomfort. And I think really recognizing and enjoying the vulnerability that invites, right? And the openness and the closeness that I feel. So there's that, it's like a reward system, oh, look at the value that comes from sitting in this space of discomfort. And that value makes it something that I want to keep doing.
Yeah, so that's reinforcing when you show up this way, you're getting these results. And it's not a result focused, but you're getting this experience.
Yes. And this is the experience. Ultimately, that's the experience I want. I don't want to be, I want to be part of the journey. The journey doesn't always have to be pleasant.
Yeah, and trying to help people is ultimately trying to relieve their pain, which then
my own, I think,
relieves your pain.
Right.
Exactly. So versus, hey, what really meets your needs is not relief, it's connection.
Yes.
So if you're focused on relief, you're going to try and fix things. But if you're focused on connection, then you're actually not going to try and fix things.
Yes. And I think that's actually really poignant for this too. If we're focused on relief, getting the lists out of the way, finishing the tasks, the to-dos, the what needs to get done, the extinguishing the fires, that is relief focused versus, and then it sacrifices the connection. So I like that a lot.
So we're going to talk about MicroConnection.
Yeah. How do we do that?
Well, MicroConnections is the term that we use to decrease the weight of saying it's got to be this 4-hour intimate date, unload hour of emotional burden from your heart. It's not about that. It's about finding moments where you can infuse heartfelt connection into your day with your partner. So looking for opportunities with strategies and space to implement those strategies.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. First, connection doesn't just happen. It requires intentionality, especially at the beginning while you're building a habit that doesn't feel natural. And the MicroConnections, they're small, but they're meaningful. And over time, they also have a cumulative effect, a trust and a safe space, and that reinforcement of, wow, this feels really good. I definitely I want more of this, of these experiences.
And usually those are the parts of the day that you remember. For me, I know that if I'm looking back on my day and saying, well, what did I do today that I really enjoyed? The MicroConnection moments are ones that pop up on the list first.
Yeah. Those are the memories that you hold on to and that still make you smile. It could be years later.
Yeah, just thinking about the hug, I'm remembering even now, I can get a memory of the time in California Adventure we were holding hands and, the way I hold your hand up and close and walking and feeling the warmth as we were walking to I think it was Cars Land or whatever that's called. But I remember that very clearly. I couldn't tell you all the other things I got done or all the stuff I was thinking about in my head that I was worried about that morning. So that's the joyful memories are mostly made up of these micro connections.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think prevents us from taking these micro connections naturally? Like, why isn't that a habit?
Well, I think there's a few different reasons. There's this myth of the perfect moment where, I think many people believe that they need this long stretch of calm to connect meaningfully, which rarely ever comes, so they just don't do it. There's this idea, we have to have this you watch the movies and it's this romantic experience. It's just this full, long thing that just it just doesn't happen very often. Not that you can't make it happen, but
Right.
don't wait for it.
I think about, I call my mom pretty much daily, but our conversations are like 5-10 minutes. Sometimes they're longer, but they can be 5 or 10 minutes. And sometimes when I think about calling friends, I'm like, I have to carve out an hour. And that hour just doesn't come easily. So it could be months before I talk to them again. What I've started doing is having 20, 30-minute calls every couple weeks. All of a sudden, I'm talking to all my friends again. And it doesn't have to be this big, the conversation just continues because it's frequent enough that can happen.
And if the ones where you're waiting an hour and then you never have them, eventually you feel it's been so long since you talk to them, it's too late.
Yeah.
And then it's the disconnection is built up, and then people think, it's too late to repair. It's too late to reconnect.
I think that is another common misconception that, it's too late, where really, if you put in the effort and you create this space of micro connections, it doesn't necessarily have to be too late.
No, exactly.
I think there's the other one that we talked about, which is confusing tasks and to-do lists with connections, where we're in that transactional state. So we may be spending time together, but we're not really connecting in any kind of meaningful heart space way.
Yeah, that one's a common one. And it's great. We're productive, but we're not connected.
Yeah.
And there's this value, at least the way I was brought up and raised, and the society I was in, our culture was productivity is what matters. Emotional closeness, not only is it not really modeled, it's not valued in the same way productivity is. So we prioritize productivity at a significant cost, though.
I agree. I think, even little things like those micro connections can actually enhance productivity, and just little examples. And I think part of the reason is because you build this safety and trust with one another so that when things are transactional, they happen willingly and not resentfully, which doesn't take up as much energy or feel as weighted, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good point.
And then you're even more productive because it takes half the time to just say, hey, Matt, do you mind taking the trash out? And you just do it to, why do I have to take the trash out? I took it out I took it out yesterday. Or I don't, whatever that is.
Have I ever said that?
No, but I'm just giving an example.
That's hypothetical. I always take out the trash.
You do. Even before I have to ask.
With bells on and so much excitement.
Yes. But you know what I mean? Like asking somebody to do something when you're already feeling disconnected is potentially harbors resentment and takes a lot longer for that to get done, or it comes at a cost later. It actually decreases productivity, not increases it. So micro connections help you progress that productivity.
Micro connections get the trash out easier.
Yes.
So, and then there's unseen distance. Like a chronic condition, disconnection doesn't appear overnight. And it's often subtle, and it's easy to overlook until it becomes a crisis. And at that point, it's this big thing.
Yes.
So it's almost important after people listen to this show, for example, to go and explore where is there opportunities for connection? Where is there disconnection, and where can I create these micro connection opportunities?
And what's the tool to help them in as they're keeping that in mind?
So the connection pause, step out to step in.
I love that. Step out to step in.
And this tool encourages families to take intentional moments to connect amid the chaos. These pauses are short, but they definitely help prevent long-term drift and disconnection. So it's so essential to relationships. This is one of the things that you and I really when we tend to it well, we're thriving no matter what's happening. And when we forget to put in our micro connections or tend to them, we can feel a distance and a loneliness. And there's this sense that both of us, or at least one of us, is watching for this. So one of the steps to using this tool would be first noticing disconnection, paying attention to when you and your partner or you and your kids you seem disengaged or irritable or emotionally distant. People know there's this sense of, there's a distance here. I just don't like it. And it feels clear. It feels a little cold. It can feel a little contracted, a little lonely.
I think you can even start by asking yourself, how connected do I feel? And when was the last time I felt really connected to my partner or my friends or my family or my kids?
Yeah. And those are these signs of disconnection, or that connection has been a little bit neglected, is your way to raise this awareness. And then next would be identifying micro moments. So look for small opportunities in your day to create connection. For example, pausing for a hug, making eye contact while handing something to your partner. So instead of just handing it to them, take a second to make eye contact. When you want
make eye contact and give them a smile.
Yes, even a smile. Or making a little joke during chore time. But something that it could be a matter of seconds, but that you could slip in a little bit of connection. And then the next step would be naming the connection pause. So let your family know what's happening. And saying, hey, let's pause for a second. How has your day been? And it's really, really helpful to do that pause and name these moments. That helps normalize these brief connections that you're taking. So call attention to it, and then use sensory anchors. I love this, where you incorporate small gestures, touch, laughter, a deep breath together. Anytime you bring in more sensory sensations to your experience, those cues create that emotional grounding. And it can happen even during chaos, even during stress. And the more sensory pieces that come into the experience, the stronger the memory is going to be, and the bigger the connection payoff is going to be. And then the last is step back into the chaos. After the pause, return to the demands. Don't tell yourself that to take micro connections, you have to stop the chaos, or you need to wait for the chaos to stop to be able to take micro connections. Instead, allow yourself to say, hey, I'm going to take a minute of micro connection, and then I'm going to go right back into the fire. Very important to give yourself permission to do that. But you're going to do it with renewed energy and a new emotional alignment that's actually going to fuel you in the chaos, and you're going to be more effective in the chaos.
This episode of Webe Parents is brought to you by Webe Calm, the child calmer designed by doctors and loved by parents.
Struggling with bedtime routines or managing your child's anxiety? Webe Calm transforms deep breathing into a fun and engaging activity, helping kids find their inner calm. Perfect for bedtime stressful moments or anytime your child needs a little extra help to stay calm. Visit webecalm.com to learn more and bring tranquility to your family. Webe Calm, because we be in this together.
So you want to give an example?
Yeah, the one that's coming to mind right now is I usually get up before the family and start getting lunches and breakfasts ready in the morning. And you come down a little bit later and have asked for that 30-second hug. And it's not something that I would naturally stop what I'm doing for to think of doing myself. But after you requested that, I'm like, oh, that would actually feel really great. And what is it to step out of what I'm doing for 30 seconds and then step right back in? There's no more it's satisfying. That 30 seconds fills the cup. And I love it. And it only enhances because then I go back to what I'm doing, but I am light in my heart. I feel my cup feels full, and it really like we talked about earlier, it enhances that productivity, not takes away from it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you'll say, oh, it's not, I can't do it right now, but give me 3 minutes and then I'll come and do it. It's not about a demand that whenever you come up, the other person has to do it. And if they don't, there's a rejection. It's not about that. There'll be times where I'm working and I'm in this flow, and to stop and give you a 30-second hug might be challenging. There's times where if you're exercising on the elliptical machine, that's probably not the time to ask you to come down and give me a hug. But there's other options. I've handed you a little note that says a loving message, or I've just looked at you and made eye contact and given you a big smile and said, hey, Alona, I just have this for you. And I just smile. And it just takes a few seconds. I think those are the things that we're talking about. You can still make it work within some of these other challenges.
Oh, absolutely. Even something small like I would be making the breakfasts or the lunches, and Jordan or Kylie would come down and I'd say good morning, and my tone would be happy and whatever, but I'm looking at what I'm doing, not at them. Versus, what I've tried to be really intentional about now is when they come down the stairs to turn around and look at them, smile and say good morning in the same way, same tone, same sound, same everything. But now I'm making eye contact with them and they're seeing a smile, and it makes a difference.
Yeah, I think that eye contact, I tend to make a little joke with them first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. Whatever your connection language is, and you can try different ones. Touch, we mix them together. There's a touch, there's a hug, there's a kiss, there's a joke, there's the eye contact. And then if you don't do it one morning, the kids will especially say, hey, what's up? I used to greet them every morning and say, with a big hug and kiss, and I'd say, oh, it's so good to see you. I missed you so much since last night. And they'll laugh and smile, like, Dad, I was just sleeping. But then when I wouldn't say it in the morning, they would say, Dad, you didn't miss me that much last night? Yeah. And it's really they just eat that stuff. They just suck it up. And I noticed the same thing. It's meaningful. It's meaningful. Yeah. And the same thing, if you and I miss our 30-second hug, it just feels a little different that morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the no skills to pro skills. I enjoy this. I particularly enjoy this because it's very easy to demonstrate the no skills. So this is the easy part of the podcast. So what would an unskillful, just to give people, I think this one's pretty self-explanatory, but if we were just going to give people a little example, what would you use?
Oh, I have so many.
So this is the easy part.
I mean, it could be the examples that I already gave. I'm busy, whether it's making dinner or whether it's making breakfast, and my back is to the family as I'm chopping or cooking, and Jordan comes in to say hello, and I say hello with my back turned to her as she walks through the door. Like, you're picking them up, they're walking through the door. I haven't seen them all day. I'm like, hey girls, but my back is to them. Versus I take 30 seconds, maybe a minute, to turn around, give them a hug and a kiss and say, hey, nice, how's your day? That doesn't take more than a few minutes. And it makes such a big difference in how connected I feel to them, how connected they feel to me. And it brings me into my heart space from my head space, which always feels really great.
Yeah, and I like doing that. I like just taking that time. I notice sometimes now the kids don't come into the office to say when they come home from school because they're used to me being on a call. But when I'm not on a call, I'll just try and be efficient. And I have to remind myself, hey, pause for a 30-second micro connection would be great, even if I'm in the middle of something important. So stopping to fuel up a little bit really makes a big difference. And it's so easy to slide off and then become a habit of not doing it.
Yeah, it changes the experience. I even think about California Adventure. Sometimes we go to these theme parks and you pay so much money to go into the theme park and the lines are long and you're busy trying to figure out how do I make the day most productive and effective and how do I get to see the most things? And in that you miss that you're in this really awesome, fun amusement park. You see people standing in line to hug characters. You're like, why are they wasting their time on that?
Yeah.
Right? But it's how do you experience the day? And sometimes we get so lost in the things that we have to do, we forget to look up.
Yeah, it's trying to be efficient and optimized versus connected.
Versus experience and be present.
I also like when you give me permission to say, when you say something like, hey, instead of, just are you feeling tension? And then would you like a hug? It's to give me permission to go back into my tension afterwards. Sometimes I assume that if you're doing the micro connection, if I'm feeling tense, it's to help me not be tense. And I find it really helpful to say, hey, I'm sensing some tension here. I'm wondering if you're feeling tense. How do you feel about getting a hug without any pressure to stop being tense? In fact, you can be tense right after the hug. Would that feel rejuvenating to get that and then go back into your tension? I find it very helpful to name that you're not trying to change the sort of unpleasant or even less than healthy or optimal experience I'm in that moment.
Yes. You just brought a thought and a memory to me about, I don't know, maybe it was a week ago, and I went to pick up the girls, and in the morning there was some disconnection between me and you, and I don't remember if the girls were involved or not, but when I went to pick them up, Jordan came up to me, and I was still I think I was feeling hurt is what I was. So I was still tight about it. And Jordan said, oh, I was thinking about this morning and I'm wondering if you can use a hug. And because I wasn't ready to let go of that hurt, but I didn't connect to that until right now when you said that. I said, I don't need a hug, Jordan. I like your hugs, but I don't need one. So I didn't want to step into that vulnerability of, oh, that would feel great, because I didn't want to get vulnerable at that moment. I wanted to hold on to that hurt.
So if she said something like, Mom, my sense is that you're feeling tight right now. Would you enjoy a hug if you could go right back into the tightness when we're done?
Yeah, can I give you a hug in your tightness, in your tension?
I'm okay with you being tense while we hug.
Yeah.
Or having tension while you hug. Like both can be. There's space for both.
My interpretation of can I give you a hug was, can I help you feel better? And I didn't want to feel better at that moment. But it's interesting because I didn't connect to that until you said that. And then I had that image pop up. So yeah, I think those are the things I think that happens regularly.
So micro connection for people that aren't used to it could feel like pressure to change your emotional state.
Yeah. Which
we want to watch
would
for that.
Make you not want to do that.
Yeah.
Resist. Yeah.
And resist it. Yeah, it's good to point out.
So what would a pro skill look like?
Well, I think we're showing the pro skills, but pausing for a second in that chaos, saying, okay, whether it can be a check-in or a hug or a glance, and whether or not it diffuses the tension or the stress or the chaos, that doesn't matter. It's just taking that moment to make just a little space for a 30-second micro connection, whatever that looks like to you, and then go back into whatever you're doing.
And maybe that's one more step in the tool is an agreement that the micro connections are not to displace emotions or to displace experiences. It's purely a connection separate from all of that. There's no attachment to an outcome beyond being present and in connection.
Yeah, I like it.
Bringing it home.
So how do we bring this home?
Well, the steps of explaining it, inviting it, modeling it, and practicing it. That's, in general, that's how we fit things in. Explaining it to the family and saying, "Hey, I heard this cool thing on a podcast about MicroConnections, and I'd love to share what that's about. Is anybody interested in hearing more?" So it's just starting to explain it, and man, if they are, to explain that, hey, this is just a few seconds or minutes, however long we want, where we can do something where our hearts get to spend time with each other.
I think modeling it is really great. And the more that you can model it, the more that others will trust that it's really just a 30 seconds or a 60 seconds or a couple of minutes, and they can dive right back into whatever they were doing without additional expectations. And just to reiterate, because I like just bringing back to the tool so people have that to remember, the steps of the tool are to notice the disconnection, to identify micro moments, and that can be whatever resonates with you, to name the connection pause, even maybe come to an agreement around this connection pause has no attachment to any outcomes other than to be present in this moment with another person. Using sensory anchors when we can, which really helps to ground and enhance an experience, and then stepping right back into whatever you were doing before. And so practicing that, practicing is really important.
Yeah, and practicing it in a way that the family can get creative.
Yeah.
Coming up with a menu of options together. What are some ways that we can call, if I said, "Hey, I'm really looking for a micro connection now. Here's a menu of things that I would enjoy. Can you pick one from the menu that you're willing to do with me?" So I know for me, I love the 30-second hug. I love holding hands. I love the eye gazing. I love when you sit across on my lap and look close and touch my face. You love back massage while we're doing a heart check-in. I know Kylie loves doing brain dumps where she just shares what's on her mind, all of her thoughts, feelings, worries, images, almost like an expressive writing out loud. Jordan loves talking while she's moving, so she loves playing handball, and we can throw that, and that can be just a few minutes even, where she's just talking about her day. Do you have other ones that you want to add in?
Kylie loves to read. And I used to think that, it had to be 30 minutes or 60 minutes of reading, but now she will read a chapter that takes about 5 or 10 minutes. And she likes to read out loud because this is a series that she and I have done since she began. So, having those moments. Jordan loves to she has a show that she loves to watch, and she'll chat throughout the show in a way that is connecting. Or right before bed, they like getting their hair done. Can you do a braid for me? Can you play with my hair? Whatever that is. And
Jordan's funny though. She doesn't like going to the movie theater because she loves talking during the movie. So It's funny, when I watch a movie with Kylie, it feels more like we're together but not connecting. When I watch a movie with Jordan, I feel like we're connecting because she's talking about the adventure. She's asking me, what do you think is going to happen? Talking about, it's almost like she's in the movie.
You're sharing the world with her. You're sharing her world with her.
Yeah. So some other ones would be, we talked about the 30-second hug. You could do a longer, like the 6-second kiss. You could just do something longer, the I see you moment where you're making intentional eye contact and you smile at your partner just while you're walking by.
Singing a song together.
Singing a song, just a hand squeeze. Kylie and I created this thing where we squeeze our hand a certain number of times based on the number of words and something that we like to say. So there'll be like I'll say hello and then she'll say hello. So that's one squeeze for each. And then I'll say, I love you. That's 3 squeezes. And then she'll say back, she'll do 4 squeezes back, which is I love you too. And then there's an 8 squeeze, which is I love you to the moon and back. And then there's a 2 squeeze response, which is me too. And there's bye.
Oh my God.
There's bye and bye, which is busties. No, so it's really funny. So we do this,
language.
but it's this whole thing that we're squeezing, and now we know it's 1 squeeze, 8, 3 and then 4, 8 and then 2 and then 1 and 1. But it's something that we do. It takes now 30 seconds to do it, but she loves it. In fact, Jordan saw me do it with Kylie, and Jordan wanted to create her own little hand squeeze, little thing together. And it's just this little moment of doing that really makes a difference. So I think, silence, or just rubbing someone's back or putting your hand on their shoulder, a little bit of touch. For me, I know that touch really helps me more than words. That's a way to really connect with me. I think with the kids, we talked about you could have a secret handshake. They love doing that too. A special funny face that you do with each other. So that can be really fast, but you've created a funny face together, and it brings you back to the time where you created the face, and then it triggers that memory and that neural network.
And that proximity, that physical connection is important, but you can also do it without that physical connection. A little note in their lunchbox. They have a whiteboard in their room, putting a note up there for them to wake up to. Little things like that just remind them you're thinking about them and invite that connection.
Yeah, they love that. The notes in the bag, the notes on the dry erase board they can wake up to. You can gamify it with like the one word check-in or 5-word check. So tell me about your day, or what was the best part of your day in 1 word or 5 words or whatever. So you just sort of gamify it. For the whole family, you can do a group hug before leaving the house together. So there's all sorts of just different things that you can think of, whether you're alone or with each other. So, Alona, knowing that we gave this you model all these different things, and you give them a menu, and you practice these things, just making it a habit, it really starts to become the culture within the family household.
Yes, absolutely.
So you want to tell us what the one last thing is?
The one last thing for me today is that connection doesn't require a perfect moment. It only needs a pause, a glance, a touch, a word. These small acts, that is what matters over time, and repeated over time. That's what holds people together.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. Please let us know how you're making time for connection in your family.
Your experiences and feedback are invaluable to us.
Please email us at parents@webetogether.com with your own cheers and tears, as well as any questions or stories you'd like to share.
Thanks again for joining us today, and we look forward to connecting with you next time.